Lin walked straight towards the exit. Continue to study the contents of the letter. The next day, Lin had just walked in. He heard a loud noise. "Oh, little boy, I met a monster." When he heard the word monster, Lin hurried over. Lin thought that maybe another mythical creature would appear. He quietly opened the door, but he saw a scene that made him speechless. He saw a woman who was over 50 years old, discussing with Hong Ying about her old man's affair. And the aunt insisted. Her own husband. He must have been seduced by a vixen outside. Even the color of the old man's pants has changed. Hong Ying is standing on the opposite side, trying her best to calming down the aunt. Finally, the aunt simply grabbed Hong Ying's hand, venting out the injustice in her heart. This made Lin standing by stun. Originally, Lin had a high respect and expectation of the night watchman. Now Lin has to lower the level again. After complaining about negative emotions, the auntie slowly stood up and left. Before leaving, Hong Ying promised the auntie she must catch the seductive vixen. When Lin saw Wen Qimo sending his aunt away, Lin stepped forward to ask, what exactly is going on? But the response he got was daily routine. At this time, Wen Qimo, who had returned, also explained to Lin, in Kangnan City, real mysterious events only happen 5 or 6 times a year. So in normal times, they will help citizens solve some small problems. This way, they can find something to do and earn some extra money. If they are lucky, they can also find some clues to the mysterious events. Lin couldn't help but sigh. It also includes investigating the old man's extramarital affairs. This seems to involve too many aspects. But the next moment, Hong Ying told him that the captain wanted to give him special training. Let Lin go to the training ground. Lin can practice with the captain for free, waiting until Lin comes here. The captain looked serious at this time. He had been sitting there waiting early. Just because this man was called a weak dog, he proposed to duel with the captain. But after just one encounter, Lin was knocked several meters away. A mouthful of blood spurted out, and Chen Mai as the strongest man in the team. His daily task is to train newcomers. As a newcomer, even Lin has a precious sword to protect him. But in the eyes of the captain, he is still a newbie. This makes Lin very unhappy. Decided to teach the captain a lesson. Until the afternoon, when Qimo passed by the training room, there was a ping-pong sound from inside. As expected, this is Lin, who was beaten black and blue. At this time, Lin looked aggrieved, but there was nothing he could do. Even when Qimo couldn't help but sigh, Lin is quite talented. Even after being beaten like this, Lin is still alive and kicking. Thinking back to those days, the first time they trained with the captain, they all walked in vertically. They came out horizontally in stretchers, even though it was a training for Lin. But Lin still didn't take it easy, because during training, the captain has some personal feelings. In each attack, 99.9% of the power is released. Only 0.1% of power is for the face left for Lin. When Qimo on the side also comforted that the only teammate in the team who can barely fight with the captain is Hong Ying. Then Lin asked, how about Zhao Kongcheng back then? Can he match with captain? The answer made him ashamed. Zhao Kongcheng and the captain didn't just fight. It was a tie. At this time, Lin endured the pain in his limbs, standing up with difficulties. When Qimo cleared his throat, beginning to take the course of the Forbidden Realm sequence with Lin. But before that, you must know Lin's skill Earthly Power. How powerful is this magical skill now? Speaking of this, Lin is very clear when he brags. He says his magical skill covers an area of 20 meters. I am invincible. Lin, a pure old virgin who has been single for decades, praises himself. When Qimo and Lin, they actually set their sights on Hong Ying. Just as the two were talking happily, Hong Ying passed by them, walked straight to the training room, watching Hong Ying's back gradually disappearing. Wen and Lin fell into silence. Then they looked at each other. They smiled at each other. It seemed as if they understood everything. At this time, Lin spoke first. Wen on the side also gave him a thumbs up. Give him a look of approval. The scene changes. When Kimo begins to tell Lin the true meaning of the Forbidden Realm sequence. The so-called Forbidden Realm sequence. It is the classification of the degree of danger of the Forbidden Realm. The Forbidden Realm after 600 is very harmless. It can only be used to kill insects, cleaning, and so on. And 400 to 599 becomes a low-risk restricted realm, although it has a certain lethality. But it doesn't pose too much danger. 200 to 399 could pose a small-scale threat to human society. And it has a certain combat capability. 90 to 199 is called a high-risk restricted realm. People who own such restricted realms, they are undoubtedly the strongest among the best. And the captain is like this. As for the top 9, they are extremely high-risk restricted realms. This type of restricted realm is beyond the scope of human beings. They only need to make a slight move. It can easily destroy a city. If Zhao Kongqian could awaken the 83rd level of Dark Moon at that time, perhaps he would have become a general long ago. Speaking of this, Lin also fell silent. Then when Kimo told Lin the name of his Forbidden Realm is Mortal God Realm, and it is ranked 3rd in the Forbidden Realm sequence. But the 003 Forbidden Void sequence refers to the Seraph, not Lin. In Lin's hands, the Mortal Realm is at most a dangerous Forbidden Realm. This is also a manifestation of the fact that the Forbidden Realm ability has not been fully awakened. Now, his Forbidden Realm ability mainly focuses on perception and prediction, although he can use the power of the Seraph. But the real power of the divine skill is far more than that. There are 2 types of Lin's current situation. One is that the Seraph only gave him a small part of the power. The second situation, maybe the ability has always been there. It's just that he is now unable to use it. And now, Lin's training has also become very simple. You just need to let your body and abilities gradually run in. Lin and Wen walked into a closed special training room. The next moment, 39,000 gun barrels were aimed at this place. Lin also reacted at this time. Isn't this just a change of place to be beaten very badly? When Kimo directly increased the firing rate to 50 rounds per second. When asked Lin to warm up first, suddenly Lin found something wrong. A row of gun barrels suddenly appeared under Lin's feet, aiming at his body and waiting for an opportunity. When Kimo's explanation was also very simple. In actual combat, danger is very likely to appear from a place you never expected. As soon as the words fell, bullets were already firing wildly at Lin. Even when Kimo, who had not yet walked out of the door, was also within the bullet range at this time. But he easily captured all the bullets fired at him, until he left gracefully. Seeing when Kimo's body movements just now, Lin suddenly realized the skills. However, the gun barrels in the room seemed to be somewhat unfriendly to him. At this time, when Kimo outside the door had a meaningful smile on his face, the school bell rang in the evening. Li Yifei, who was about to go home, but stopped at this time. The classmates beside him kept urging him. He was still in a daze. The brothers just thought that he was scared after the last incident. Li was scared, but only he knew how much the incident affected him. So he rejected his classmate's invitation, reached out to grope for his pocket containing the house key. Suddenly remembered that he had left his keys in the drawer of the classroom. Then he turned around and said goodbye to his brothers. Lee walked towards the classroom, but he had just walked downstairs to the teaching building. But he stopped. An inexplicable palpitation came over him. It made his aorta tense. He thought about it. Should he step on his right foot or his left foot first? As a classic extra role in a comics book, he always likes to seek excitement. However, the empty classroom also made him feel relieved. Suddenly, he heard footsteps coming from behind him. Looking back, it was the class monitor and the dean of teaching. The two walked slowly towards the classroom. At this time, Lee was hiding under the table, thinking about coming to the classroom at this time. Are they going to play poker? But he gave up the idea the next second. The monitor, who was standing in front of the dean, opened her mouth. This lovely girl wanted to have a sweet teacher-student relationship with her teacher. However, the price was to make the teacher and her merge into one. As soon as the girl finished speaking, she swallowed the dean of studies into her stomach. At the same time, at the night watch base, Lang Fang was teaching Lin the structure of the firearms. Although firearms have little killing power against mythical creatures of higher realms, but against mythical creatures with lower-level realms, it is still very effective. Then he started to count the time for Lin. Lin thought carefully. He thought about the structure of the gun in the book just now. He calmly analyzed the location of each component. But his hands were very fast. Lin assembled the pistol in a short while, aiming at the bull's eyes with a straight line, accompanied by a gunshot. This test was also successfully completed from the holes. The three-point line was just right, but even at this distance, Lin could still miss the target. It also opened Lang Fang's eyes. But for Lin, after all, he had just evolved from a blind man. It was inevitable that he was a little uncomfortable. After a day of training, Lin was either chased and hacked by the captain with a knife, or was beaten into a sieve. Although guns are not tiring yet, Lin is definitely not good with guns. Just after passing the meeting room, Lin was attracted by the pot of braised pork brought by the captain. I didn't expect the beat today. Is not for nothing. But at the table, they started fighting for a piece of braised pork, openly and secretly. After dinner, Lin laid on the bed and sighed about the fulfillment of the day. But his mind unconsciously recalled his sparring with the captain during the day. At first, he could only hold the knife tightly to block. There was no chance to fight back. Until the end of the training, he realized that holding the knife should not be done with just force. Lin sat up from the bed, tried to swing the knife again. The next morning, Lin walked listlessly on the way to school. I practiced too much last night without realizing it. As soon as I walked downstairs, I heard Hong Ying say that something big had happened. As soon as I entered the door, hurriedly asked Hong Ying if a mysterious person had appeared. However, Hong Ying stated very seriously, this time the timing is very tricky. They just received the news. A new mythical creature has appeared. And the location is Kangdon's second middle school, where he is studying. The one who came to report the case was also his classmate. As soon as Li Yifei turned around, he saw Lin. He asked him why he was here. Lin answered awkwardly. Now he is a temporary member of the Night Watch. This shocked Li Yifei. He didn't expect that the classmate said that Lin had joined the army. This news turned out to be true. Suddenly, the captain interrupted their chat. Remind them to talk about the case first. The deputy captain also concluded. The general content expressed by Li Yifei, that is to say, when he went back to get the key. It happened that the class monitored ate the dean of teaching. The experience that night left a deep impression on Li Yifei. But there was one thing he was not sure of, whether the dean of studies was dead or not at that time, although he saw the dean of studies being swallowed up. But then, the worm's belly began to wriggle again. Instantly, it spewed out a huge snake egg from its mouth. But when the snake egg broke, he was shocked and was afraid and couldn't believe what he saw. The dean who had just been eaten. He actually crawled out of the snake egg. Among all mythical creatures' abilities, assimilation is the most troublesome ability. Their ability will multiply the number of victims. The harm will also expand rapidly. If they add disguise abilities, they are even more dangerous. The most important point is, mythical creatures with this ability often have intelligence that are not inferior to humans. From the information that Li Yifei just provided, the mythical creature in Kangnan Second Middle School has already begun to assimilate humans on campus. At this time, the captain has a bold guess. Assimilation is likely to have already occurred in Kangnan School, causing a spread of infection. At this time, Li Yifei raised another detail. The dean of studies who had been assimilated in the first day. On the second day, he was like nothing happened. He attended classes with students as normal. He even knew which chapter the textbook was about. When encountering such a thing, the decision made by the deputy captain was to prepare for the worst. That means the entire second middle school has been infected. Even possible. It has spread to the parents of students outside the school. Hearing this, Li Yifei was already scared silly, if that's the case. The girl who used to talk and laugh with him. Are they all monsters now? When Kimo, who was standing by, also comforted the deputy captain and told him not to be nervous. If it was really as he said, the crew of disaster would have called long ago. This made Lin and Hong Ying look confused, because they had never heard of the disaster crew. The silent captain began to explain. It was a forbidden item in Kangnan City. When a major disaster occurs in Kangnan City, the disaster crew will scream to warn. The deputy captain, who is a sergeant, also made a suggestion. This operation is divided into two groups. The first priority for these two groups is to find out the true form of the mythical creature. At the same time, they need to find out how many people have been infected. First group of people, using the victim's social relationships as clues. They need to find out if there are other infected people among their relatives and friends. Another group of people went into the school. Follow the clues. They need to find the location of the creature's main body as soon as possible. But they want to enter the campus. They must change into school uniforms, pretending to be high school students, so as not to alert the enemy. Hong Ying couldn't help but complain after putting on the high school uniform. This dress is really ugly. Little did she know that Xiaonan was behind her. Can't even put on such an ugly school uniform. Suddenly, Lang Feng handed Lin a pistol from behind. Although Lang Feng knew that Lin's shooting skills were not very good, but Lang Feng told Lin, the purpose of a gun is not just to kill. After Lin understood the intention, Lin put the gun directly into his trouser pocket. Fearing that the gun would go off accidentally, Hong Ying and Xiaonan then did a handsome backflip. They climbed over the fence, turned around, and told Lin, after entering the campus, if there was something, they would communicate with the headset, although they all understood the truth. But they didn't go through the door. They insist on climbing over the wall. Will they be doing something unnecessary? On the campus, Lin is the main operator because only he has the ability to accurately identify the infected. So he wanted to get in touch with as many classmates as possible. However, when he passed each class, when he saw the monsters hiding in the crowd, it still made his scalp tingle. There were 6 infected in his class alone. When everyone heard such a number, the captain and deputy captain outside the school were also shocked. They didn't expect that in half a day. The assimilation could infect so quickly. Lin was also worried at this time if it is really exposed. And fighting got started. Those ordinary students are no match for the monsters. We don't know how many people in the school will die by then. So Lin must find the source of the infection as soon as possible. Lin came to the door of the classroom in a blink of an eye. When he calmed down and opened the door, Teacher Zhu is giving a lecture. When he saw that the person coming was Lin, Teacher Zhu's temper exploded. He asked about the absences in the past few days. Lin didn't have a valid reason. Do you still have me as a teacher in your eyes? Lin said hurriedly, I was hospitalized for 2 days because of eye problems and missed the class. After listening to this, Teacher Zhu also felt guilty. So he asked Lin to return to his seat and prepared to continue the class. But didn't he know? The class monitor in his seat had already noticed him. Sweet and salty school beauty.